All right, we're back on. Defendants are present, represented by counsel. All right, my understanding is the technical issue is probably due to the wireless connection going to the screens. What we do have available that I understand is working just fine is the big board. So the witness has obviously seen the body cam, testified to as much when the video was admitted. The video is going to be played. I'm just going to have him stand if he needs to watch or look at whatever he may be being asked about on the video itself. And I'm going to confirm that the two jurors sitting in the gallery have a clear view of the large board before we go any further. Assuming that they do, I think we've got enough to get through this witness, and over the weekend or later today, we'll figure out what it's going to take to possibly hardwire all of this in order to make sure that we're having fewer technical issues. So that's the plan. That being the case, anything from the state?
We'll go all the way to complete this witness today.
Yeah, I plan on getting this witness done. I've got a timing-wise, I think this is probably the only witness we're going to get through today. Okay. So I understand nothing from Travis McMichael, Greg McMichael, or Mr. Bryan. Ready to proceed. All right. Let's get Officer Duggan. Thank you, officer. So what we're doing, you didn't hear what I was saying. Since you've already seen the video, we're limited to the large monitor. You may be asked some questions about the video itself. If you need to stand up and look at what's on the big monitor, you're welcome to do so. You don't need my permission to be up and down. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I don't want to fall out of it.
All right, let's go get the panel.
Please be seated.
We probably need them on this end. Yeah. Well, if I would prefer them at the state's table, then if you drop your laptop screens and anything else that may be on that table just to get through this video. Okay, thank you. Okay, we're back on. Officer, I remind you that you're under oath. I just want to confirm to the two of you that are sitting there in the gallery, right now we're going to be limited to using this large board. Can both of you see that large board? If at any point during the presentation of evidence, the two of you or any one of you has a problem seeing the evidence as it is being presented, as I said in my preliminary charge, please let me know, and we'll do whatever we need to make sure that you have a clear view of the evidence as it is presented. Okay? Everybody understand? Ma'am, right on the end there, do you have any issue seeing the large board? Yep. You can see it. Okay. Thank you. Your witness.
Thank you. So, once again, I think we're back at State's Exhibit 219. Who is that gentleman right there?
That would be Officer Minshew.
Yeah, I know.
They're trying to do something for him. Second. Ready for a second? What we're talking is Bill? I think my card. White panel looks at the center console, please. You wipe off once you get here. Yeah. Well. Just stay over there for us. I know. I recognize you now. From Michael. Stay here. All right. Yeah, there's nothing I can do for this gentleman. I got more tape. Yeah, I got some. I got more tape if. Seven is fine. Sorry.
Officer Duggan at this point in time?
Shotgun center chest, he on his stomach. And then here I rolled him over. He stopped breathing in a couple minutes.
So, Officer Duggan, I'm going to stop this right now and ask you a question. Does the sound appear to be a little off on this, not capturing everything?
That is correct.
Okay, and so we're not hearing actually everything through the sound system right now that is on this body cam video, are we?
That is correct.
Is it fair and accurate as far as depicting what is going on as far as the people in the scene, meaning Officer Minshew and the other people who are in where the crime scene tape is?
Yes,
Okay, so the video that we're seeing right now is very accurate, is that right?
that is correct.
Okay, but these are the EMS people that we're looking at right now?
EMS and fire, yes ma'am, that arrived on scene.
All right. And the problem, of course, that we're seeing with the playing of this right now is they were actually speaking to you, saying some things, but we were not hearing that. Is that right?
That is correct.
Okay. And for right now, Officer Duggan, let's go ahead and continue with the video. At this point in time, are you communicating to EMS what you had done as far as tending to Mr. Arbery's body?
Yes.
His last. Stuff that I.
And had you made an earlier determination that there was nothing else you could do for Mr. Arbery?
Yes ma'am.
Okay. And why did you make that determination?
For the amount of blood loss that I observed on the scene, the lack of rise and descent of his
When he was on.
Yeah, please testify. Pause the video. Any question for him?
So at that point, when you had made that determination, it was because of blood loss, what else?
the amount of blood loss I saw on the scene, the lack of rise and fall of the chest, and basically the gaping wound that I saw in his chest. There was nothing I could do for him.
The nature and extent of that wound?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Now, at this point in time, are other officers beginning to arrive on scene?
Yes, ma'am.
So these would be other officers who had responded to Minshew's call out, is that correct?
Yes, the ones that were on duty on his shift, yes.
All right. In addition, when we go back and here we are at minute 4:31, at any point in time, this gentleman standing here, did you ever know who that was or interview him or anything along those lines?
No, ma'am.
Is it uncommon for people to come to scenes like this?
No, it is not.
Right. But yeah, Google.
At this point in time, at that point in time when you turned around to look behind you, was someone actually standing behind you?
Yes, ma'am.
And who was that?
Junior, Mr. McMichael.
All right. And did you know where Greg McMichael was at this point in time?
I believe he was still across the street. I'm not sure.
So when we're looking here, when you say across the street, are you talking about Officer Jackson and Mr. McMichael over here?
Yes, ma'am. Across from behind. I wasn't aware at the time then who was behind me.
at this point, you shut off your body cam,
That's correct.
and did you then stay at the scene for any length of time?
For a few minutes after that, to debrief the responding supervisor and to have permission to exit the scene and leave.
Right. And did you write a report in conjunction with the work that you had done that day in responding to Holmes and Satilla Drive on February 23rd, 2020?
Yes, ma'am, I did.
All right. In addition, when you got there via your car, how does dash cam work in a patrol car?
The cameras that we had at the time are linked to usually the lights and the sirens. More importantly, the switches on our console that activate our lights. When we activate the lights, if the camera is on, it will activate the camera and start recording. The system that I had in my car at the time was a WatchGuard camera system. It has a separate shoulder-mounted mic, which I was not wearing that day as I was in an off-duty capacity, and often did not wear because I had an actual body camera that would capture the audio. So therefore there was no audio to the video that was captured when I departed out of the restaurant parking lot and responded to the scene.
And with regard to State's Exhibit 220, which contains 5 videos from your dash cam, have you had the opportunity to review State's Exhibit 220 and those 5 dash cam videos?
Yes, ma'am.
Are they fair and accurate?
Yes, they are.
Any alterations?
No, ma'am.
All right, this time the state would tender into evidence State's Exhibit 220.
You're asking about his dash cam?
Correct.
Yes, no objection.
No objection.
No objection.
It's admitted.
Thank you. This time the state will publish. Where are we? Right here, Officer Duggan.
This is traveling northbound on 17, going towards Satilla Shores, just passed underneath the I-95 overpass. Frontage road on the right where McDonald's is. Coming up to the Satilla Shores neighborhood on the right-hand side.
And were your sirens going this entire time?
Yes, ma'am, and lights.
Is that a red porta potty?
That appears to be so, yes, ma'am.
Was that a man on a bicycle waving at you?
Yes, appeared to be.
Once again, who is that officer?
That's Officer Minshew.
And who just came into frame?
That'd be myself.
Video 2 of State's Exhibit 220. to the right, the person pacing back and forth?
I believe that is Mr. Travis McMichael.
Now, I'm going to pause here at 2:11, 2:14. This person who just walked from over here to over here, who is that?
I believe that's Mr. McMichael Sr.
All right. And the individual back over here that you can barely see, did you even notice him when you were there at the scene?
No, ma'am, I have my back to him.
Okay. Do you know who that person is now?
I believe so, yes.
And who is that?
The third party over here.
Mr. Bryan?
That's correct. There he is.
States their video of States Exhibit 220. At this point in time, do you actually know where Greg McMichael or William Bryan are?
No, I don't know.
States Exhibit 4, or States Exhibit 220, video number 4. Who are these gentlemen who are coming into scene here at second 24?
Glenn County EMS.
Who are these two officers, if you know?
Officer Roberts and Brandon Berry.
Who is this officer crossing right now?
I think that was Officer Brandon Berry.
And these two gentlemen approaching Mr. Arbery's body?
Fire rescue paramedics.
And lastly, video number 5 states exhibit 220. Do you know who this gentleman is who's just walked up and is speaking to Officer Brandon Berry?
No, ma'am, I do not.
Stopping now, right here at 120. Person over here in this corner. You see where I'm pointing?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, so I'm going to back it up a touch. 1 minute and 18 seconds. Who is that person?
I'm not sure. I can't really tell from here.
Okay.
I'm thinking it's Mr. McMichael, Sr.
All right. And the man he was talking to over here in the blue shirt, did you know who that was?
No, ma'am.
States exhibit 220. Your body cam was uploaded and made part of this case file?
Yes, ma'am, it was.
All right. And in the report that you wrote in conjunction with this activity, Did you include in there what Mr. Travis McMichael had said to you?
I did.
Right. And after this, what we saw in this video, did you receive authorization from Sergeant Leska to then leave the scene?
Yes, I did.
If I may have a moment? I will pass the witness, Your Honor.
Legal Travis.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Early evening, Officer Duggan.
Good evening, sir.
We've had a chance to talk just a little bit before you testified, is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. We hadn't really talked before then.
Not at all.
Not at all, yeah. So you know me as Jason Sheffield. I represent Travis McMichael.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So as I understand it, when you arrived on the scene, you're going to follow a protocol that essentially tells you what you need to do first, second, and third. Is that fair?
Yes, it is.
All right. So first on the list is officer safety. You'd agree?
Yes, sir.
All right. The safety of yourself and others that could be in harm's way.
That is correct.
All right. And once you establish that you're safe, that others are safe, and there's no present danger or threat, then it becomes about scene integrity.
That is correct.
So as we see you step into the scene on the video, these are the things that are running through your mind.
That is correct.
Is it fair to say that when you see Officer Minshew, who was the first officer to arrive on scene, that you're looking at him to see at what phase he might be in about assessing safety and whether or not it's safe to enter the scene?
That is correct.
Okay. Did you trust that Officer Minshew had made enough of a determination to feel safe to be out on the scene and start to assess things yourself?
Yes, sir.
Okay. The second thing that you then sort of undertook when you got into the scene was to do an assessment of Mr. Arbery. Is that fair?
Yes, it is.
Okay. And now you have had a lot of medical training, 184 hours, I believe is what you testified to.
Yes.
Okay, which includes assessing the health and wellness of people who have been shot by guns.
That is correct.
Okay. In your time doing that, have you come to understand about wounds and gunshot wounds and blood loss?
Yes, I have.
All right. Is it fair to say that you have made observations in the past about the amount of blood loss a person can endure before it becomes fatal?
Yes, sir.
Okay. When you had arrived at the point where you were going to be assessing Mr. Arbery, and before you turned him over to really check and look at wounds, there was a lot of blood that you noticed on the ground.
That is correct.
Okay. Was it your opinion at that moment, before you even flipped him over, that the volume of blood loss could have been such a complete volume that he would have been deceased at that moment?
It could have.
Okay. And when you turned him over, one of the things that I think you noticed, and I'll just say this, you wrote a report in this case, right?
That is correct.
You and I discussed the report that you wrote.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And in that report, really, you wrote a lot of your observations about that day.
That is correct.
Okay. And those observations include observations about Mr. Arbery when you came up to first encounter him.
That is correct.
Okay. And one of the things that you noted was that he had fixed eyes.
That is correct.
Okay. And fixed eyes is a sign of brain death. You familiar with that?
Not particularly, no.
Okay. You noted fixed eyes as something that indicated that his eyes were not reacting to light.
Correct.
Right? His pupils were not opening or narrowing, right?
Correct.
Okay. And that's what you mean by fixed.
Correct.
And that his gaze was also not moving. His eyeballs were not looking around or doing anything like that.
Correct.
Okay. And I believe that you made the conclusion that there was nothing that you could do to do any form of resuscitation.
That is correct.
Okay. You were also asked about Baker 9. Baker 9 being the area that includes Satilla Shores and the Exit 29 area, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And is it my understanding that you are one of the officers that works the Baker 9 area?
No, sir, I'm not.
Okay, but the Baker 9 area is an area that's worked, and I think your testimony was by one officer at a time. Is that fair to say?
Usually, yes, sir.
Usually is. And is that because there's a population size that determines Baker 9 and one officer is enough to work that particular Baker?
Not particularly the population. It does have a factor in that. It'd be fair to say population size for that is sparse in that area.
Okay.
More concentrated near the interchange area and going west, and then it's dense populated or
Becomes
relatively.
more densely populated after that.
Correct.
Okay. Are there some Bakers where one officer works multiple Bakers?
On occasion, yes.
Okay. And I think your initial statement when the state was asking you is that there are a quote-unquote fair share of calls in the Baker 9 area.
That is correct.
And what you mean by that is people calling 911 for whatever problems that it is that they're having that they need law enforcement assistance with.
Correct.
Okay, very good. Now, one of the things that you also did when you came onto the scene is you made some observations about Travis McMichael, who you've been kind of referring to as Junior.
That is correct.
Okay, and what you mean by Junior is that he's the son of Mr. McMichael.
That is correct.
Okay. And one of the things that you observed about him was that he was very upset.
He appeared, yes.
Yes, that's something that you noted in your report. You wrote the words very upset. Is that correct?
Correct.
And you also talked about the fact that he was sitting kind of off to the side by himself, correct?
I believe so, yes, sir.
Okay. And that he was doing a lot of pacing, right?
I don't recall him doing a whole lot of pacing.
I thought we just watched the video where you saw him kind of pacing back and forth.
On the video, I saw that.
Okay, so the point that you're trying to make is maybe you don't independently recall that, but now that you've watched the video, you see that there was a lot of pacing going on.
Yes, sir.
Okay,
Correct.
but you did notice that he was covered. He was covered in blood.
That is correct.
Do you recall seeing that he had also had blood on the back of his neck? Do you remember seeing that?
No, sir.
Okay. One of the things that you did at some point, I think we may even see you do it on the video, is you kind of indicate over here, and you ask Travis if he is okay. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And what you meant by is he okay essentially is because he has blood on him and because he's there at this scene of this shooting, you want to know if he's got a physical problem ongoing at that moment, right?
That was the meaning of my question.
That was the
yes.
meaning of your question, but he interpreted that in his response to you with kind of an emotional response by saying, no, I just killed someone.
That's correct.
Okay. And as you and I were talking, and I was asking you to help me understand how you interpreted his emotional response, I believe what you shared with me is that it was like a driver of a car who had just hit a child and then asking that driver after that accident, are you okay? And the person says, no, I'm not okay. I just killed a child. That's how you kind of likened it to me. Is that fair?
That's correct.
Okay. Now, one of the things that the state asked you about was your training. And after 12 years of training, part of that includes use of force training, right?
That is correct.
When to use particular styles of policing to try to either, number one, de-escalate a situation, right?
Correct.
Or to have to use a particular level of force to either protect others or yourself. Fair?
That's correct.
Okay. One of the things that I think you've been taught is leaps. Does that term have meaning to you? Leaps, L-E-A-P-S.
Not familiar, no, sir.
Okay. Are you familiar with, in terms of when you begin to investigate a situation, that you would use something that's called leaps that stands for, I'll expand it for you, listening, empathizing, asking questions, paraphrasing, and summarizing. Is that a technique that you're familiar with when it comes to engaging with either a suspect or somebody that you might be investigating?
No, sir.
Okay, so how about this? When you're investigating a particular person that you may think has done something wrong, one of the techniques that you might do is to come up and talk to that person.
Correct.
Okay, you might ask them questions
Yes.
to try to understand what's going on.
Correct.
And this is something that you've been taught to do as a police officer, right?
Correct.
Don't just assume the worst. Let's begin with or attempt to have a conversation.
That is right.
Okay. And you might try to empathize with that person, to try to see it from their perspective a little bit, as a way to potentially keep things from rising up and getting heated.
Correct.
Okay. The other thing that you would certainly be taking stock of is the mental state of the person, right?
At this point, I'm going to go ahead and object to relevancy of what Officer Duggan and his training as far as all of these things have to do with his responding to the scene of this homicide.
My response is, Your Honor, this officer was asked about his training. He's on cross-examination about that and about his approach, and I feel it's a fair area for cross-examination.
The objection sustained. We've seen what his involvement was as far as this particular case, unless you can work me through exactly what this would be relevant to in his role in this case.
Yeah, we have an officer who's been trained, who's gotten training in use of force and de-escalation. He has a knowledge to answer some of these questions, and as the court knows, this case is going to be about use of force and de-escalation.
The objection sustained.
Okay. So you're not allowing me to ask you any more questions about his training, is that what I understand?
I didn't say that.
Oh,
The objection
okay.
to your question is sustained about the line of questioning that you're
Okay.
going down.
All right. One of the things that you do as an officer, though, is if you can't have questions necessarily answered by someone, you're also, though, paying attention to how they're interacting with you.
I'm going to object to this entire line of questioning as relevancy for this officer. He didn't interact with any witnesses, and we object to relevancy.
I should sustain the objection on that line of questioning.
Okay. When you arrived at the scene, you're looking at Travis McMichael, right?
Correct.
You're looking at Greg McMichael, right?
Correct.
All right. You're looking to see who else is around you, right?
Yes.
And as you're assessing officer safety, you're looking at their conduct and behavior.
Correct.
All right. You obviously have now seen Officer Minshew show up on the scene, and you've made an assessment of that he may have done that, assessed the behavior of people.
Correct.
But as you're arriving on the scene, you're also going to make your own assessment.
Correct.
Okay. And you're going to look to see the behavior of Travis McMichael and Greg McMichael as you approach and enter into that scene, right?
That is right.
You're going to be looking to see if there's any aggressive movements by them.
Yes.
You're looking to see if they approach you.
Correct.
You're looking to see if they respond to you when you talk to them.
Correct.
You're looking to assess their level of mental acuity so that you can determine if there's anything wrong with them.
To an extent, yes.
Right? And so one of the things you might do is ask them questions to see how they respond to you.
Correct.
Okay. And so also, at no point did you have to use with Travis or Greg McMichael any kind of verbal commands against them to try to de-escalate them in any way.
Correct.
Okay. You didn't have to say something like, stop, don't come any closer.
I did
You
have
did not.
I did have
Oh.
Mr. Michael, Mr. Senior.
Okay. There was a
back up.
moment where you were close to Mr. Arbery that Mr. Greg McMichael started to walk towards you a little bit.
I believe there were 2 times, yes.
Okay. And you put your hand out and you said, you need to just stand back for a minute.
That is correct.
So that's an example of how you might use a verbal command to keep some distance between you and another person. In this case, Mr. Greg McMichael.
That is correct.
Okay, but at the time that he walked to you, he wasn't doing anything like reaching into pockets or holding any kind of a weapon.
No, he was not.
Okay, you were essentially trying to assess Mr. Arbery at that moment.
Yes.
Okay. And so for the entirety of your time on the scene, you never had to say to Travis, stop or don't come closer to me.
Correct.
He was very cooperative and kind of waded over to the side.
That is correct.
1 second, please. I don't have anything further for the witness. Thank you, Your Honor.
Anything from Gregory McMichael?
No question.
Anything from Mr. Bryan?
No questions.
All right. Anything then further from the state?
No, Your Honor.
All right. Thank you, officer. You can go ahead and step down.
Your Honor, for the record, we are not releasing any of our witnesses from subpoenas, and all of our witnesses have been informed that they are not to discuss their testimony, and we are reserving the right to recall Officer Duggan if necessary.
All right, Officer Duggan, you are subject to recall. Thank you.
We were going to ask that you not be released, but it sounds like you're not.
Okay. All right. Yeah, you're released for the day. You're just subject to recall. Thank you. I think that was misinterpreted as you needed a mistake. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are at a good breaking point for the day. So what we're going to do at this point is we're going to adjourn until 9 o'clock Monday morning. Over the weekend, all of the instructions that I've given you still apply. I want to remind you of a few, and I told you you're going to hear these over and over again. You're probably going to be thinking about them as you're walking around in a couple days. I say thinking about them. You won't be able to get them out of your head. So again, do not discuss this case amongst yourselves or with anybody else. Do not go looking for any information about the case. If anybody approaches you about the case, please notify the court and we'll go ahead and address that. Don't let anybody discuss this case in your presence of hearing. With those instructions, and just to be clear, don't go picking up newspapers. Make sure your news feeds are off. If you're out socially over the weekend, don't let anybody talk to you about the case or approach you about the case. And if anybody's talking about the case wherever you are, please walk away. With those instructions, I again want to thank you. I want to thank you for your service to Glenn County and to the Superior Court. It is appreciated. I appreciate your patience with us as we move through this process together. Have a good, I keep looking over here. I'm so used to looking at the box. Don't want to ignore the two of you there. But with those instructions, have a good weekend. We'll see you back here at 9 o'clock on Monday morning. Thank you.
All rise for the jury.
All right, y'all be seated. Jury is clear. Anything from the state before we recess?
No, Your Honor, just that State's Exhibit 219 obviously was not playing the correct sound, and I could tell. I got some eye contact from the defense attorneys. I thought we could also tell, and then Duggan was definitely looking at me like this is off. So obviously, we have to get with our IT team to determine why, because these are all going to be on the same player, this VLC player, and if the sound isn't going to work, we've got to figure that out.
Yes.
I will do that. I will try and reach out to Cedric and make sure we can do that. Nothing
Anything-
else further.
All right. Anything from Travis McMichael before we recess?
No, Your Honor.
From Greg McMichael?
No, Your Honor.
From Mr. Bryan?
No, Your Honor.
All right. We've got a number of things technically we need to work through. I will get with whoever I need to get with in order to figure out what we need to do about a witness, or not a witness, about the witness box. And also I understand that we're going to be looking at the boards and make sure that we have clear video and sound on whatever we have here in the courtroom for Monday. So I'll endeavor to see if we can get that, or those things addressed. So everybody have a good weekend. Everybody stay safe. The weather out there is terrible, so please be careful. And we'll see you back here at 9 o'clock Monday morning. We're in recess. No, it's off the record. Well, maybe I don't want to do it here. Can we turn the mics off?